Hey, welcome back to Gold's Garage. So the purpose of this video today is to talk about how to build an engine stand, an engine test stand or startup stand, whatever you call it. And if you've watched my videos before, you've seen this stand many times. I've started up a lot of motors on this engine, on this stand. So we're going to give you some insight into various ways of building it. I've actually got Mike's going to put a screenshot up of an actual budget to build one if you're thinking about doing it, and we're going to go through that. First of all, I've got to cover off a couple things. Lots of things going on at Gold's Garage. We have the Pontiac engine. I just made a video of it recently. Joe's 455 Pontiac engine that had the bolt fall into the in through the carburetor, into the intake manifold and into the head, and did lots of damage. That video is getting lots of traction. It's a sad story, but it's a true story. We show experience is expensive. You can gain by watching us and getting free experience based on our experience. So, in fact, I'm going to tie that into the tip of the day at the end of the day. I'm going to come back to that. So, what's going on? The Pontiac, Joe's trying to decide on the strategy for recovering it. He's got the engine out. We've taken it partly apart. I'm leaving it kind of mocked back up until we decide our plan. We've got parts coming and stuff, but we'll talk about that in future videos. My 406 small block Chevy is going to the dyno on October 13th, 15th, which is a week from yesterday. And so you will see that coming up. Watch for that. You've all heard the videos about Mike Kimball's budget build. Well, this looks a little different. So we had issues with the cylinder heads, some valves leaking on the cylinder heads, and we made a decision to make a pretty big change. I have a pair of fast burn Chevrolet GM heads, the ones that come on a ZZ6, or if it's the Circle Track crate motor, the CT400. They're really nice aluminum, the D-port style raised runner heads. And we have another video. By the time this one gets published, should already be published. The issue that we had with the heads on the 406. We went to Bill Little's shop, and Bill is the guy that did the repair for me on these heads. Obviously, they're back on the engine. And I made that video like a while ago. And once again, we make videos when we can, when I got Mike available to do the editing. And so they're not necessarily in the logical sequence, but we'll do our best to fix that. So you're going to see how Bill fixed those heads. So what he's going to do, one of these heads is missing, as you can see. The other one is at Bill Little's shop. I did a leak down test on these heads. I had these heads in stock, and two exhaust valves were leaking, so Bill's got them. He's fixing them. And next week we're going to go back to his shop, and he's going to do a flow bench demonstration on his flow bench. So if you watch the video about Bill and his valve grinding and expertise, flow bench, he's a drag racing guy. He's got lots of experience, and I sure learned a lot from doing the video with him. So the topic today is how to build a test stand. So first of all, there's lots of different ways to build a test stand. Before I forget, like and subscribe if you don't mind. We're getting better every day. We're getting more subscribers. We're growing pretty quickly, and we're pretty happy with that. Lots of great comments. I learn from your comments. I'll share your experiences with other people that like and subscribe. So please do us a favor to do that. It's free to you, and but it's what makes it worth making videos for me. So anyway, back to the test stand. You don't have to do it my way. I'm not saying it's the only way, but I'm going to describe how I did this one. So if you go back to the end of 2017, sold the race operation, and of course I needed something to stay busy. So I made a decision to start building engines again. Hadn't done that for a while. And I just moved here not long ago. Nobody knows Alan Gold. And so I wanted to be sure if I did sell any engines, when they went out of here, they were ready to rock and roll in somebody's hot rods. So before I even built the first engine, I built the test stand. And how I did it, I started with a kit. I think it's called Laren, and it'll be in the screenshot. Test stand. So the kit is, you can actually buy this kit on Summit, or you can buy this kit on Amazon. And it's a pretty nice kit, but lots of things I had to do after I had the kit built. After I had the kit. The nice thing about it, it's very, very flexible. You can get a variety of different engines on it. I've had, of course, lots of small block Chevs. I've had 409s, 427 big blocks, lots of Pontiac 400s, 455s, etc. on this test stand. An Austin Healey 6-cylinder engine on this test stand. Two different, my Blue Flame 6 has been on this test stand. The modern version of the Chevrolet 6-cylinder I've had on this test stand. So it's pretty flexible. It can accommodate just about anything. This bar slides back and forth, and these bars slide back and forth. So it's very, very flexible and adjustable. And you just hang the back of the engine with these brackets, and the front of it, you need to have motor mounts that you mount onto it. And everything is very, very adjustable and movable. So it's pretty easy to work with. However, when you get the stand in the kit, there is no radiator, and the kit assumption when you're doing this is that you're going to flow water from a garden hose in and out of the engine to cool it. Well, that didn't really get my interest. So the first thing I did was go and buy a radiator. I bought it used on Kijiji, and this is actually out of a Camaro, but it doesn't matter as long as it's sufficient size. And because the stand wasn't designed for a radiator, I had to build all this bracketry and stuff to mount the radiator, and then that pushes the engine back, and you can actually mount the engine this way or 180 degrees with the exhaust going out the other side. But once you put the radiator on it, of course, you've made that decision, and the engine's always going to go this way. So those are some of the things you have to remember. And there's guys running engines. They're building them on an engine build stand. They're firing engines up. They're doing on an engine cradle that you use to store engines. When I was 16 years old, I bought a 327 drivetrain out of a 66 Chevelle that rolled over when it had 100 miles on it. And I stood over top of it and started it up, holding it from rotating with the oil pan sitting on the ground. So you can start up engines a lot of different ways. So let me go through some of the things that you have to think about. One of the things here is, you see my turnbuckles. Because I used a radiator and pushes the engine back, if you use a big block or even a 400 Pontiac, the big Pontiac blocks, or a 409, the engine won't fit in the confines of the stand anymore. So I removed this whole device at the back where the tray is. That tray is just a tune-up tray that originally fit on a carburetor for tuning an engine in a car. I put that there because it's handy. But all this comes off, and I just use turnbuckles to locate the block to the engine stand. That way it makes room, because you can't do it any other way if you have a big block and you want to use a radiator. So let me go through Mike's going to put a screenshot, but I'm going to go through kind of the budget with you, and that'll kind of make sure I don't forget to bring up anything that's important. So the test stand kit, I think at Summit, $600. And I can't remember if that's Canadian or the US, to be honest. But you can look it up yourself, and you can also buy it. It's called Laren, L-A-R-I-N. You can also buy it on Amazon. So one of the other issues, and I think I've seen other videos about it, one of the things you got to do is replace the wheels. I didn't do that at first. And once you get big blocks with all the accessories on them, every time I start an engine up, I have to move it all the way out to the outside of the shop, start it, and those wheels wore out pretty quick, and I had to replace all 4 wheels. So that's, I'm making allowance for prices and numbers in this budget. You may already have stuff, you may be able to buy it a lot cheaper than I can, do it better, that's fine. This is just to give you a ballpark figure of what you got to deal with. So replacing the wheels, I allowed $100. Bought a used radiator. Once again, I paid $100 for the radiator. So that's on there. You need a battery. I actually took the backup battery out of my race car, so I didn't actually go and buy one. But if you don't have a battery, you're going to have to go and buy a battery. You obviously need power to start the engine up. The water and oil gauges. It comes with a nice gauge panel. I like the look of it. It's still there. But both the water and oil gauges were electric. They were very flimsy and they didn't last very long. So I've replaced both the water and oil gauges. The tachometer is the original tach. It still works fine. But both these gauges don't work. Didn't work, and I have replaced both of them. Placed electrical panel. So the originally this one came with a key switch, and it was pretty flimsy. I could have still used it, but it was awkward to use. So I found a pretty good deal, I think, on Amazon of a nice panel. It's really meant for a race car. It's got a push button for the start. It's got lights for, I got the ignition, a fan, fuel, and lights. So, and this is a disconnect to turn it all on. And then I got a major, the other primary disconnect right down at the battery. You don't have to do that. You can hook it direct. But that way, when I take an engine out, I don't have to even worry about getting an arc or a spark. Once that's turned off, no power's going anywhere. And it's a nice, safe way to leave it stored. You're not going to have a short or something. So that was an add-on as well. So if you do it and you're going to use various kinds of engines, you need belts and hoses and pulleys and stuff like that. So what did I allow for that? $100 for belts and hoses. So I've got ones that can adapt to big block, small block, 6-cylinder, 409, whatever. So, by the time you get done buying a bunch of them, you're going to invest some money. If you only need it to start up one engine, obviously, it's going to be a lot more simple than that. So, cables, wiring, and plumbing. So, you need a ground wire, you need a power wire to get to your starter and all that stuff, and cables. So I allowed, what did I allow for that? I allowed $100. You might be able to do it for less. You might have used stuff that you can use. Okay. Motor mounts, you need motor mounts. So this bolts up right to your standard motor mounts. So if you already got motor mounts on your engine, that's fine. But if you're going to use a number of different engines on it, you need motor mounts. And so these are just standard Chevrolet. These motor mounts are very inexpensive. The auto parts store, what did I allow for them? $30 for them. I have a pair of mufflers for them. So sometimes when I start it up, most of the time I use mufflers. And they're actually aftermarket mufflers. They do a good job of not disturbing my neighbors. And occasionally, for a purpose of a video, I take them off. But depending where you live, you might not need mufflers. But if you don't, something to think about. I put an electric fan on it. It obviously didn't have electric fan, so that's another thing. I allowed $100 for electric fan. And then water pumps. Now, if your engine's got a water pump, but I've got a short water pump, a long water pump, a big block water pump, a 409 water pump. So whatever engine I have to deal with, I can do that. And so I allowed $100 for that. Obviously, depending how many you buy, it might be a lot more than that because a big block water pump, it's not cheap. So those are just ballpark numbers. Your experience may vary, obviously. So here's some other optional items that I wanted to bring up. So headers, so you need, if your engine's got exhaust manifolds, you don't need headers, but these are just a shed of, these headers are actually used headers out of I believe out of a Camaro. I bought them on Kijiji. Might have been from the same guy I bought the rad from, I'm not sure, I can't remember now. I've had them for a long time. I have a set of Pontiac headers for the 400 or 455 Pontiacs. And big block headers as well. So I'm just allowing $100 for that. Electric fuel pump. So that's one thing I think is important. As you can see, I installed a nice little electric fuel pump. So if you're starting up an engine for the first time, you want to be sure, if you watch some of my startup videos, that you got fuel pressure to your carburetor, your fuel bowls are filled, your float levels are set, and you don't have any leaks in your fuel system. So by having an electric fuel pump, we can turn that on, and we know that if we look down there and there's a couple squirts coming out of the accelerator pump, and we know we're ready to start. So if you don't have that, you either got to fill your carburetor in advance, or you got to crank the engine over, and if you're breaking in a flat tappet cam, you don't want to be doing that. You don't want to turn the engine any more than absolutely have to. So I thought a fuel pump was a good investment. A shop carburetor, I allowed $100. This is a carburetor I just had for a long, long time. It's a 650 Holly. It's a double pumper. It's just an old used carburetor. It was sat around for a long time. I did rebuild it. And we've had this carburetor on a dyno, and in some engines it makes almost as much power as a 750 on a 350 or bigger 383 engine. So it works okay. But I only use it really for mainly now Darrell Waters. Darrell Waters dyno service has every kind of size of carburetor you can think of. So I just use this for starting, but you need a carburetor to start it up if you're going to do that. So I allowed $100 for that. Shop distributor, I've mentioned this distributor in other videos. We're going to do a demo. This distributor you can buy on Amazon and other places. I mentioned before, it costs less than $100 Canadian. It's an HEI, obviously. You just plug in a wire to it and you're ready to rock and roll. And I just use this one. I'll turn around and buy another one. So I bought lots of them. A mini starter is, you need a starter of some kind. So I bought a mini starter that fits on big blocks and small blocks, and most of the engines that I use do. But you need a starter of some kind. And mini starters, as you know, I think I allowed $300. They're not getting any cheaper. If you're going to start it, you need flywheels and flex plates. So for small block Chevs, I have the external balance, internal balance. I have a few others, probably got 4 or 5 different flex plates, but you're going to need one at least anyways in order to start it up. So total of the optional items is $1,100. So the way I did it is around 20. It says $2,690. Obviously, that result can be very, very different. Your experience may vary. You can do it for a lot less, but that's how I did it. So share that with you. And if there's any questions or comments, let me know. I'd be happy to try and answer them for you. The kit comes with a fuel tank, by the way. So it's 1 gallon or so, and it's enough to run an engine for probably close to 30 minutes. So as long as you're not jamming on the throttle too much, it's enough to get for heat cycles and starting up a new engine, it's adequate for me anyways. So that's pretty much it. So my tip for the day, if you watch the previous video with the Pontiac, and I'm going to go and grab it. Let's come over here, Mike, just to show you. So check this video out. That's the top of the piston that came off of it. And this is what we found under number 3 cylinder. We actually found this by looking in the spark plug hole. We had a camera, but we found out we didn't really need it because you could see it through the spark plug hole. So there are doubters out there, but the only story that makes sense to us is the owner had this engine idling for some period of time without a breather on it, and he can't find another one, so this is probably the one that was there. Came off his carburetor, found its way through the intake. Don't forget there's a suction there. When the piston's coming down, it's trying to suck it in. Got by the intake valve, got parallel to the piston. When the piston came up, broke the piston, broke the block. This block is scrap or needs to be sleeved. And my customer Joe, we're looking at a bunch of options right now how we're going to recover this thing and fix it. One is to sleeve it, one is to buy another block and then use as many parts as you can. We got a variety of choices here right now. But if you have a hot rod, my tip of the day, if you have a hot rod, first time you get a chance, open the hood and make sure that your little wing nut or your stud is in there. Ideally, this is just a 1/4 inch coarse stud that goes in the top of your carburetor that holds your air breather on. Use a jam nut, Put some Loctite on it if you want. Make sure that's good and tight. It can happen. And when I posted a video of this a little while ago, I had other guys come on and comment saying it's happened to me too, so it can happen to more than one person. It's a sad story. This is going to be a very expensive repair. Make sure it doesn't happen to you. So that's my tip of the day. I hope you find that valuable. And I've already done it with my hot rod. I check to make sure it's tight because it can happen to you, okay? So that's about it for the startup stand. We're going to make some more videos back at right around the same time. We're going to post a video at Bill Little's shop, and we're going to make more videos on Mike's budget build with my, it's not quite going to be a budget build anymore because these are not inexpensive heads, that's for sure. And as soon as Bill Little gets the other one fixed for me, it's going back together. So hopefully that's enough to keep you thinking. Remember, you can learn from my experience. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching Gold's Garage.